Hey, hi everybody. Where to start? It's been a long day of hoeing and weeding and mulching for me, typical for this time of year. But I want to start with seed saving. And I should say, Jacob introduced me the as my nonprofit hat for the Salt Springs Seed Sanctuary. That's something that we've been doing for since 2002, and we're trying to uh, orient ourselves towards feeding the community in a totally nonprofit way. And then I've been doing the Salt Spring Seeds for since 1986, which means it's been about 33, 34 years or something like that. And I'm still going strong. And right now you're looking at me in my office, and it's been pretty busy this year. Been insanely busy. I've never seen anything like it. People are realizing that we better start moving in the direction of local self-reliance and sustainability, and figure out how to grow more of our own food better without importing it thousands of miles away. And so we've been very, very busy in this office here during the heavy duty time. I was just telling Jacob that my wife Celeste and I were in here, and it was just been the two of us in this office. And it was a pretty funny time because the orders were coming in so fast, and we were doing the orders so fast. But at one point, you're looking at the screen on our Shopify store, and we're behind 200 orders, and then we're just going for it and going for it. And next time we look at the screen, there's 250 orders, even though we've already fulfilled a lot of them. And it went like that for close to 2 months. And many seed companies closed down, and they just couldn't cope with what was going on. They couldn't keep up with inventory. And part of that was because a lot of seed companies don't grow their own seeds. We've been growing our own seeds. We have other growers in the neighborhood here on Salt Spring Island and some of the other Gulf Islands and on Vancouver Island. But a lot of seed companies like West Coast Seeds don't grow their own seeds. They trial some of their seeds to see if they do well here, but they just buy seeds from huge multinational corporations, and those corporations grow a specific seed in a specific place where it's best to do that, and they supply a lot of the big seed companies. And in fact, most of the world of seeds is controlled by just a few players. Probably most of you are well aware of that. And there are very few seed companies like my own, like Salt Spring Seeds. Usually at the beginning of the year of the gardening season, the gardening magazines list all the seed companies. And every year I count the number of seed companies that really are growing their own seeds in a similar fashion to what I'm doing. And usually it's about 35, maybe even less than that, because a lot of the companies that grow their own are not doing very much in terms of have a lot of diversity. But all in all, there's only a few small seed companies in the whole country. And if you think that there's 40 million people, no, there's not 40 million people yet in Canada. There's close to 40 million, must be 36 million or something like that. And that would mean that my vocation as a professional seed saver is one of the rarest vocations that there is in the entire country. If you give it, say, 35, 36 companies like my own, that means there's 1 in a million of us. And not many other vocations you can say that about. And yet it's one of the most important things going. And it's been a weird thing during my years as a seed saver, watching the big companies take over everything to the point where they control a lot of our very, very basic seeds, the seeds that have been carried on for forever and ever. And even my own company, Salt Spring Seeds, is quite unique in that we feature a lot of high protein crops that you won't find in any other seed companies, not even in the United States. And it's really bizarre that it's gotten to be like that. There's maybe one or two other seed companies catching on to what I've been doing now, but you won't find any offerings of barleys or of chickpeas or of soybeans or of amaranth or of quinoa. A lot of the other high protein crops are just, the small seed companies grow their lettuces and tomatoes and a bunch of other things, but not those basic crops. So it's a pretty interesting world that I'm in, and I've been writing about this for practically all the years that I've been a seed saver gardener. And maybe I'd like to refer to the A, B, C, and D of seed saving, which would be hard for corporate agriculture to relate to at all. But here it is. A is for abundance. And one of the most amazing things is to see when you're a seed saver how abundant seed production is for any crop. Practically the least high yielding crop in terms of seeds are beans, regular beans. And they'll give you at least 100 seeds back for every seed that you plant. But then if you're looking at herbs, or if you're looking at tomatoes or lettuces, you just get thousands of seeds back from one plant. And take that to the extreme of some high protein crops like quinoa and amaranth. You can, from one amaranth plant, you can get 500,000 seeds. And that says a lot about the abundance of nature. And those are all, if you imagine taking those seeds and planting every single one of those seeds, it wouldn't take more than a couple of years to feed the entire planet with amaranth. So it's pretty amazing to think about. Just usually in the world of agriculture, it's scarcity that people refer to. And that's because the big guys are always controlling the supply chains and telling us that we need them to feed the planet, and they work it out so that all the small scale farmers get eradicated and we can only relate to them. And they're talking about scarcity all the time, but that's not the true story. The true story is that nature is infinitely abundant, and we should start using that as a paradigm and not this scarcity stuff. And B is for beauty. There's a whole world of beauty in seed saving that most people just don't know. They can love and adore all their flowers and their veggies, but if you take it to the final step and watch these plants go to seed, there's a whole other amazing thing going on. And each plant has a different, unique way of going to seed, and the seeds are beautiful in their own way. There's so many shapes and sizes, and seeing them and having them just in your hand is a different experience, and it's a very potent one that it's pretty hard to describe for somebody who's not a seed saver, because what what you know is that in your hand or on the screens, those seeds are future crops and future abundance. And it's pretty hard for me to tell you all about that. You have to experience it to really enjoy the beauty. And it's not only the seeds themselves. The plants, as they go to seed, are often quite different than what you normally think would be the case. Your lettuces, when they're going to seed, all of a sudden they shoot up and get much, much higher. They end up being 3 feet high, and they have different configurations, which are uniquely attractive to each kind of lettuce. You have, I don't know, take chickpeas. You've got these gorgeous plants that have really delicate foliage, and then these tiny little bladder pods appear, and those are your chickpeas, and they're so cute. It's really hard to describe, but beauty awaits you if you ever want to really pursue the world of seed saving. And the C of seed saving is community. And there's amazing community that exists in the world of seeds. It's all the birds and the bees and the butterflies and the bugs that all work together to create this incredible thing of fertilization and pollination, and just there's whole worlds that go on that you wouldn't believe. And each one is kind of unique. When you part of the world of saving seeds is like a lot of things, you have to be there on time. You get the seeds when they're ready. If you wait too long, you'll still get the seeds, but when you put them on your trays or on your screens, you'll see that it's action central for a whole bunch of different kinds of insects. And it's pretty cool when you gather them and then bring them in. You'll see all kinds of bugs skedaddle, and each one has a unique spider and or all kinds of bugs you can't even imagine what kind of, but they're pretty much all different. It's quite amazing to see that. And it's not only the community of the insects and the birds and the bees, it's a community of people, of generations of people, of hundreds of generations of people that have kept these seeds going. And it's an amazing thing to realize that these wheat seeds that are now in your hands have stayed alive for thousands of years by the simple act of farmers growing them and passing them on and growing them and passing them on and growing them and passing them on. And this whole families and villages and countries, and there's whole stories about how certain varieties have kept going, and there's cultural things about it. Just, people choose seeds for their color, their flavor, there's stories behind everything. But the whole thing is about community for sure. And part of that community is also diversity. And throughout all the ages of agriculture, there's never been the monoculture kind of mentality that exists these days. People have cultivated a diversity of crops, and they've done that with the knowledge that that's the way things work best. If you grow a diversity of crops, you don't really have to worry about insects taking over like they do in monocultures when you have thousands of acres of the same crop. Everything everything holds everything else in check, and it's much safer, and it's much easier, and it's also much more reliable, because if you have a diversity of things, some might not make it, but always some will make it. And that's a huge difference. Some might succumb for whatever reason, but if you have a lot of things, then you're going to have some harvest for sure, depending on whether it's a cold year or a hot year or a wet year or a windy year or whatever. So there's the A, B, C, and D of seed saving. And I should add an E too. E for easy. Because seed saving is really easy. And there's a lot of technical books and agricultural treatises, and there's just so much stuff about the importance of knowing what crosses and what doesn't cross, and how you make wise selections. And it's actually very, very simple. I have no agricultural training whatsoever. I studied anthropology and psychology at McGill University, but I had gardening in my bones right from the very beginning. And all I did was pursue that. And thing about saving seeds, you just let nature do it, and it's a simple completion of the cycle, and you have to figure out maybe what is the seed. Sometimes it's not so clear, but after a while you get used to knowing that the flower becomes a seed. And how to pick the seed is really basic too. It's a matter of tipping it over into a bucket like you do with poppies, plucking it, rubbing it, but it's all hand stuff that you just you stay on the alert for when it's close to being ready, and then when it is, you develop these simple techniques. And as I was waiting just a few minutes ago to come on and join you, I picked a couple of things just from outside the window here. This here is just a simple cress, and you can see that all these pods, it had lots of leaves before, but now it's going to seed, and in every one of these pods is a beautiful little reddish seed, and it's not quite ready, but it's turning now. And in most cases with pods and little bladders like this, you wait till it's really dried down and becomes brittle. And in another couple of days, it will be. And it'll be really easy to get the seed by just rubbing it between my hands. Or I could put it in a Rubbermaid and walk on it, and all the seeds will come out. And I'll be left with these stalks and some of the debris, but the seeds will be really small. And then all I'll need to do is get one of my screens. One of the most important tools is all different size screens that you can have that are really easily had from hardware stores and garage sales. And you just get the right screen, the screen where the seeds will just fit through the holes, and then you got it. And then you got your seeds. And I picked this also. This is similar to many mustards, and these pods are different than the ones that I just showed you that were the cress. And most kales and brassicas, and this is a mustard green, they just become brown, and then they become so brittle that they'll even pop open right in a hot day, and you want to get them before that. But then it's so easy to get the seeds. All you do is just grab your hand, and they'll just all fall out. Or again, you can just walk on them, squish them somehow. But all the techniques are really basic and pretty straightforward. So that's the A, B, C, D, and E of seed saving. And that wasn't in the title of my talk, I don't think, but I want to talk about, I think what the title was, related to the best crops to grow for self-reliance and sustainability. And they're the crops I sort of mentioned before that mostly the big agricultural corporations control entirely. And they've pursued them for their own ends all the way along. And we could have gone totally different directions like many other cultures have with them. But instead we have these crazy things that are dependent on herbicides, for example. And I've written a couple of books. The Power of Pulses is all about dried peas and beans, chickpeas, favas, and lentils. And then Awesome Ancient Grains and Seeds is about seed crops like flax and soybeans and amaranth and quinoa. And maybe a recent book, the one that you probably saw on the screen, this Changing the Climate with the Seeds We Sow, is all about how we've taken these crops that have been our heritage for 10,000 years and gone down a very, very narrow path with them that excludes their abundance, their community, their beauty, their diversity, all for the ends of multinational corporations. And each one of them has a specific story about how we've sort of perverted them to the ends of these multinational corporations. And most of you probably know some of the stories, but I'll mention a couple of things, like soybeans. Soybeans actually led me to start Salt Spring Seeds way back in 1986 because I discovered that there were varieties of soybeans that just weren't known, and yet they were quite different than the really yucky soybeans that were available that tasted terrible, and that Monsanto later on developed into Roundup Ready soybeans. And I've still been trying to promote soybeans all these years, and I've kept a lot of these varieties going, and we eat them, and they're amazing, delicious, high protein crop. You need very few of them to give you a very substantial and satisfying meal. But Monsanto took it was a bad soybean to start with, and then they made it into Roundup Ready soybean. Roundup is the world's most common herbicide, and they bred this GMO, genetically modified soybean, to withstand Roundup, so that when you applied this Roundup herbicide, glyphosate, on it, it would kill everything except the soybeans. And they certainly succeeded with that whole Roundup Ready soybean number. And it's amazing how many forests are destroyed every day so that they can plant soybeans, and how much of these Roundup Ready soybeans are into every imaginable kind of fast food, and how much they're fed to all the cattle that are blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go into Roundup Ready soybeans except to say that it's at the point now where close to 100% of soybeans that are cultivated commercially in North America are Roundup Ready soybeans. They've got the entire market. If you tried to find any of the soybeans that I'm growing, like Grand Forks soybean or Manitoba soybean or Kurakachi soybean, I'm the only source of them in the whole of North America. And in the context of glyphosate, Roundup, one of the things that I talk about in that book, Changing the Climate with the Seeds We Grow, is wheat, because it's kind of a different story with soybeans. The soybeans are bred to withstand the herbicide, but with wheat, herbicide is sprayed on the wheat, usually aerial spray. That's been the story for about 15, 16 years now. They just go over with airplanes, and at harvest time, they kill all the other vegetation with by just aerial spraying Roundup, and that makes it much easier for the combines to process because everything else is finished and you're just left with the wheat. And to my mind, the whole story about weed intolerance that's developed over the past 15 years directly correlates with the aerial applications of Roundup on wheat. It's been amazing that not that many people talk about it. They say, "Oh, I got this wheat allergy," and there's all kinds of stories about that. Part of the story too is that they don't ferment wheat like they used to. It's really a fast process these days. But I really believe that a lot of the allergies to wheat that people have these days are, it's not that they can't tolerate wheat, it's that they can't tolerate herbicide. And in that context, in my years of, it's been quite a number of years now, watching agriculture grow and change, what's happened to the health of North Americans in the past 20 years or so, to me relates a lot to what's been going on agriculturally. And we've just been poisoning the planet, really, with herbicides and pesticides. That's our agricultural model. And the unbelievable increase in heart attacks and diabetes and cancers and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and obesity, that's just come out of nowhere. When I was growing up, people didn't die of cancer left, right, and center. And the same with all the other diseases. And now it's increasing to such a point that we're wiping ourselves right off the map. And yeah, we have this this climate change thing going on, but we're wiping ourselves out at the same time. And we're so divorced from nature and what we're doing to wipe out all the species. Right now, we're at the point of one species dies every 20 minutes, I think. And I really believe that a lot of it has to do with agriculture. And not only that, agriculture has a lot to do with climate change. And it's something that's not often calculated. Usually people attribute agriculture, they say that, maybe 15% of greenhouse gas emissions are directly related to agriculture. But if you start to realize what people do to eat every single day to put 3 meals on the table and calculate all the things that happen to get your food on the table, you have to, it's changed a lot now thanks to COVID, and maybe that's a good thing in some way. And we're starting to realize that the supply chains are not so reliable. But, basically people are, the number one vocation in North America is truck driving, and that's mostly about driving food from one place to another. So many people work in so many kinds of restaurants and stores that sell food. So many people spend most of their lives trying to figure out how to get food on the table. And if you really factor in all the things that are not directly involved with eating, but indirectly, I think that you'll see that, it's number one. I'd say over 50% of greenhouse gas emissions can be related to the way we grow our food. So back to my stories about changing the climate, we have all these great crops that have been handed down to us for forever and ever. And I was mentioning that we pursue very narrow roads in terms of where we go with some of these crops. And wheat is a really good example, because for me, I had the amazing experience of going to Ethiopia a while back ago, and a farmer just happened to give me 2 heads of wheat when I was in a field, and we were part of a seed saving group. And he said, try these. These are really good. They're very early. We use them in combination with other grains for making bread, but you can make bread with them. And so I brought them back with me and managed to get them through the airport, and grew them out and multiplied them again and again. They're a very pretty wheat, and they're incredibly early. What Canada has done with wheat over this whole past century has been constantly selecting to get earlier maturing varieties that can be just the right height for harvesting. And it's been all about the best wheats for the kinds of breads that they were looking at. But this Ethiopian wheat that I grew was 2 weeks earlier than any Canadian wheat that I've ever come across. And that blew my mind. And not only that, it was a fabulous wheat. It was a darker colored wheat, and it was totally hardy, but it was so early, and it was fantastic cooked whole, like the farmer told me it would be. And I got to the point where I had a lot of it, and I sent some down to the whole grain exchange in California. And sure enough, some farmers took it and ran with it, and it ended up being a commercial crop there. And that's so crazy that just by chance, some farmer could give me 2 heads of wheat, and that very wheat could have such distinct and fantastic qualities that our wheat people in Canada have never even related to. And that reminds me of another incident that I had in when I was at the Gene Bank in Addis Ababa. Back then, I was trying to find barleys, because barleys are the most cold hardy of crops, and some nations rely on barley a lot to feed them, like in Tibet, for example. And back then there was, well, I got one variety of barley from the United States Seed Savers Exchange at the time, and I was growing it out. It was from Ethiopia, and I called it Ethiopian barley. And this Ethiopian barley was pretty good. It was, it didn't have hulls that were hard to remove. They were very easily removed. But when I was in the Gene Bank in Addis Ababa, I told them that, oh, I had Ethiopian barley. I was growing Ethiopian barley. And they thought that that was the funniest thing that they had ever heard. My guide who was with me, and the people there in this tiny little room in the Gene Bank laughed for maybe 15 minutes without stopping. And then when I finally asked my friend Malako Warady, who was my guide, what was the joke? And he said, well, you think you have Ethiopian barley, but we haven't taken you to our cold storage room yet, where we keep all our accessions, sorry. And we have over 6,000 different kinds of barleys just next door. You think you have barley? We know all about barley, and we have barleys for special occasions, and we have barleys that we cook up in the morning, and we have barleys that we eat at night, and we have barleys for thatching, and we have barleys for brewing. And when they told me that, the lights went on in terms of my realization that there's a lot more diversity in other countries for a lot of crops than we even imagine. So what other crops are in that book? Chickpeas. No other seed company in North America, like, a mail order garden seed company sells chickpeas. It's an easy crop to grow. A lot of people eat a lot of humus, and it's wonderful as a bean in soups, and easy to grow, and you can get about 300 seeds back from a single plant. And why do no other seed companies carry chickpeas? And they come in all colors, just like the barleys, and the beautiful crop to watch grow. And speaking of let me just mention peas also, because peas are pretty well known in Europe as a dry bean. People often use peas cooked up. They don't, the normal shelling peas that are so sweet are a different cultivar entirely, but there's a lot of different dry peas, and they're really easy to grow, and you can start them early, and you could be harvesting them around now. And in places where you can't grow beans, you can grow dried peas. And yet that's another crop that you don't find offered in many seed companies. Where do you find peas that are advertised as soup peas? I have about 15 different kinds of those, and they come in beautiful arrays of colors. I have one that's amazing gold color, big and fat, like a corn kernel on steroids. And I have a beautiful claret colored one, and they make beautiful cooked bean dishes. But we have an interesting thing in Canada about the pulses. Pulses are crops that we should be growing on a much smaller scale. It's easy for people to grow their own pulses. And yet, the weird thing is Canada is the world's largest exporter of pulses. We export more pulses than any other country on the planet. And we send them off to places like the Middle East and to China and India. And yet, if you want to find any locally grown pulses, any chickpeas, favas, lentils, dried peas and beans, you won't find them in our stores. Very rarely. Most of it will be imported, even though we export more than any other country. One time when I was giving a talk in Calgary, the woman who was driving me to the airport, told me that she was looking all over the entire city to find some dried peas to make a pea soup, and she couldn't find any. And Alberta is the world's capital of pea growing, and yet there's nothing like that was a while ago. It's probably still the same story. But the amazing thing about the pulses is that because of this special thing they have called nitrogen fixation, they're able to snatch nitrogen out of the air, and through an association with the bacteria on their roots, they put nitrogen in the ground. So all the pulses basically, just by their very nature, just by growing, they epitomize sustainability, because they're increasing the fertility of the soil just by growing. And you find that if you keep on growing the same chickpea or pea year after year, you'll find that the yields increase every year. This is contrary to what organic gardening people tell you. They always say you should rotate your crops all the time. But in the case of peas and beans and chickpeas, because of the nitrogen fixing and the mycorrhizal association that builds up in the soil, yields get higher and higher. And as long as you don't have any diseases or are pests, there's no reason to not plant in the same spot as is true for other crops. And the beauty about all these high protein crops that I'm mentioning that are neglected on the home garden level and at the community level is that there's no special technique for learning how to save the seeds. They are the seeds, and you don't have to take it further, like getting the seeds out of a tomato or letting a lettuce go to seed. All you have to do is not eat them all and save some for the next year. So they're simultaneously the crops and the seeds, and that's a really awesome thing. And then further, it takes so little room to store them. They don't have to be refrigerated, they don't have to be canned, they don't have to be frozen. They just can be kept as they are in a dry place. And that is an amazing thing. It's like so little energy is required in growing and preserving all the pulses. And it's time we woke up to that fact that there's such a great food, and all the nutritional profiles of these crops, these seed crops, are super high in protein. At least 13%, a lot of them are 15, 19%. And that's, if we really want to start feeding ourselves, we have to start thinking more of growing these kinds of crops and doing it on a local level and doing it without herbicides and without pesticides. Interestingly enough, somebody pointed out to me now that China is refusing our lentils because they found too high a level of pesticides and herbicides on them. And we're all hearing about this moment in time that has amazing potential for change. And to my mind, the most important thing of all would be to learn how to tone it down a lot with the super gigantic scale of things that we grow food on, with the super gigantic scale of herbicides and pesticides that are poisoning us and the entire planet. And I think it's not only about supporting your local farmer, but I think one of the things that we have to move in the direction of is learning how to work together to grow our own food. People have been doing that since time immemorial, and we could do it in a different way than has been done before. It's very easy to grow a field of beans or a field of wheat. And because we've let large-scale agriculture take that whole trip over, we've not examined ways that other cultures just do that very thing on a much smaller scale and not so destructive to the world and the environment. And part of it is just having small-scale threshing machinery. Very common in countries around the world, but very not so common around here. Although it's starting to catch on, people are starting to realize that it's a simple mechanical process and pretty easy to harvest and process your own seed if you have the right equipment. You don't have to do it all by hand. I've been doing all my stuff by hand and feet all these years, but if you want to do it on a larger scale, you can just get a small scale threshing machine, and that could be for community use. And that's starting to happen now. There's a group in Vancouver called Farm Folk, City Folk that built one last year and has been going around to various farms and showing people how to do that very thing. And I must mention that as my nonprofit hat for the Seed Sanctuary on Salt Springs Seed Sanctuary, we've been working to grow more of our own food in that very same way that I've been talking about, with a bunch of people together. And we have a park. Some of you might have heard of Ruckle Park on the southeast corner of Salt Spring Island. And we've worked out an arrangement now where we're growing a big field of beans. This is our second year. We grew out a bunch last year, took those seeds, now we planted them out again. And this will be for our community food bank and for community potlucks, or they won't have to be potlucks because we'll have all the food ourselves and people can just come. And we've had annual bean dinners for years and years, but now the bean dinners will come from our very own Ruckle beans grown at Ruckle Park. And I should mention one thing that I almost always have mentioned in all my talks, that people really don't know about beans. And that's a cultural bias, again, that has come because we're importing most of our beans. We don't really eat our own beans. And the beans that we do eat are old most of the time. They've been sitting in bins and barrels for quite a long time, usually 3, 4, 5 years. And you wouldn't think so necessarily, but beans age and oxidize just like other food, but they do it more slowly. It's not as fast as broccoli. But after a year or two, beans don't soak up water as easily, and they take far longer to cook, and they're much harder to digest. So most people have this bias that beans are hard to digest, and they look down on people who eat beans as, well, that too bad those people have to rely on beans all the time. But actually, beans are an amazing food, and they're totally digestible, and they don't give you gas if you eat them within a year of having harvested them. So that's something to remember. But until you've grown your own beans and cooked them up, you won't experience it. You won't experience it. Probably most of you have cooked beans for many hours, but they cook up in less than an hour if you grow your own beans. So what else do I want to say before? I don't even know how long wow, time is going. I don't usually go on like this so much. Maybe some of you want to ask me some questions.
So people can unmute themselves if they have questions and just ask.
Hi, Dan. Hi, it's a great talk. Thank you for doing that tonight. My question is, I actually grow in Vancouver. I have a really tiny raised bed in a community garden. So I've been trying to save Swiss chard seeds this year. So my question is actually, how do you, because you have to grow the plant longer when you save seed, like, do you have any tips on how to manage, like, still grow another, like, succession planting while saving seeds in a small space like that?
Well, a lot depends on what you're growing. Chard is a biennial, and there's a few other crops like that. It won't go to seed until the second year. Mm-hmm. And then when it goes to seed, the beets are the same. They're in the same family. They often will go to seeds crazily. You'll get so many seeds from so few plants. And even if you're careful harvesting them, they'll come up all over the place the next year, and you'll have chard forever and ever.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything else that you're growing that I can answer any questions about specific crops in terms of seed saving?
Okay. Well, this is the second year for the chard, so they are very massive right now. That's why I'm asking, because I can't really plant a whole lot of things around it right now because I'm waiting for it to go to seed. So I'm just growing, like, I don't know, like lettuces or things I can harvest in like 3 weeks so that I can, because like once they go to seed, then I'm trying to think about, like, if I take them out then I'll be tearing out a lot of other little plants around it if I plant around them right now. You know what I mean?
The trouble with the chard, it's still got quite a few weeks to go.
Okay. Well, let's wait then, I guess.
You probably don't need as many plants as you have. How many do you have?
I have a multicolored one, so I have one of each color. So I have 5.
That's probably good, because then you'll keep all that that range of color.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what to say.
Just wait.
That's a tough thing in a small garden.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. One thing I should say, since nobody's popping up with a question right away, is
I got a question.
okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is really interesting. Like I saw this video and they said that if you cut like a carrot and then you can put it in the ground and it'll grow a carrot. Like, so I cut the carrot top and then I planted it. And then I was like getting really anxious because like the carrot part was growing really tall. And then I looked and there was no carrot. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'll stick it back in there because no carrot was growing, but there was a lot of top. And
Okay.
then when I stuck it back in, now it's gone to seed. So I'm like, oh, right. I don't get one carrot. I get many, many, many carrots. But I just don't know when to harvest it. So they're making like little flowers, but I don't know how long do I wait? Because I don't want them to fall because apparently they're really small seeds, right?
Okay, well that's the story of carrots for sure. And I remember probably in grade 7, one of my teachers showed that you cut the carrot top off and then it would still grow, but it can't grow another carrot. It goes to seed and it grows. That would be the same with a lot of other root crops. And it grows a big top, and then the flowers are quite attractive, and they're quite big, and on top of the foliage. But it's hard to describe what happens. But the tops sort of curl around on each other, and they produce a huge amount of seed, but they don't fall. You don't have to worry about, they'll just be dry on the top and you'll have quite a window of opportunity for just grabbing those seeds, and you'll have hundreds of seeds from just that one carrot that you're allowed to grow. And it's just a matter of getting them when they're dry, and they'll look a little bit different than carrot seeds that you buy, because most often carrot seeds, they machine process them to make them smaller and cut off the little attachments of the seed. But you know, they normally aren't ready. Well, you cut yours, so it's usually about a mid-July harvest for carrot tops. But you will get seeds from just what you did, and it'll work.
Hi, Dan. It's Les Melbourne from Nanaimo.
Hey, Les.
Yeah, it's a great show tonight. Thanks for what you're doing. Couple things, just a little bit of a report on the seeds that you gave. I'm really appreciative of all the diversity. Taj Mahal marigolds are going well. The orchid beans are going well. The Trail of Tears Cherokee beans are going good. We got the soy in. Everything's going well. But we're now getting ready for winter gardening. And just want to talk a little bit about, if you could talk about that a little bit, about when to sow and those kinds of things. And our friend Diane was over to visit you the other day from Nanaimo too.
Yeah, I miss her. My wife saw her.
Right.
For me, the very best winter crop of all is kale. And it's really good to plant it not before now, but almost from now on. Because if you plant it before the solstice, it often bolts. It just goes to seed in the hot weather. But if you start it around now, or even you have actually 2 months in which to start it.
Okay.
But around here, kale lasts through the winter practically in any and everybody's garden. And all the other brassicas, like the broccolis and the cabbages and the Brussels sprouts, they seem to be attacked by so many different kinds of bugs, and you have to be really lucky to get a good harvest of them. But kale seems to be so invulnerable to most anything, and it's also the most nutritious of all those. It's just full of vitamins and minerals, really, really high in both of them. And that's number one for me. You can also, beets and carrots are a good one to plant now, because they'll last, depending on where you are, they'll last probably through the winter, and you'll be able to harvest them all through the winter, especially if you put a little mulch on them. And then there's parsnips are a good one, and rutabagas. A lot of the root crops are good to plant later because they stay in the ground, and you can harvest them whenever you want, for like practically until next spring. What else? If you have shady spots, you can keep on going with the greens. In an open, hot area now, I say no, but a lot of people have shady gardens and they won't go to seed if it's in a cool and wet area. Practically anything in terms of greens would work.
That's great, Dan. Thanks very much for that. I'll be over in August to help you out for a day or two.
Will you?
You bet.
Okay, fantastic.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Les. Anybody else want to?
Oh, I wanted to know, so I just heard that guy saying he was gonna help you. Do you need volunteers, or can you use some more volunteers?
It always depends on any given day. I have so many things on the go here. There's like 500 different plants that are going to seed starting now. And sometimes we're on top of it and sometimes we are not. And probably on any given day, we can use help. Now, it's most of the things are planted, and we're just doing a lot of mulching and making sure we've had ample rain, so that's been great. But we're just weeding and mulching and just getting everything organized for yet another go around. So anytime, really, best to just email me, dan@saltspringsseeds.com. And yeah, your help would be most welcome.
Thank you.
Okay,
Could I ask a question, please, about heirloom seeds?
for sure.
Or are those the only types of seeds that you can save, or can you save seeds from anything that you've planted in the vegetable garden? Even if this package doesn't say they're heirloom.
Well, there's a couple of things here. It used to be that heirloom and heritage seeds were 50 years old or more. But nowadays, people are considering heirloom seeds as seeds that actually are simple, savable seeds, seeds that you can actually save. And if you're buying seeds from a seed company, if they say that they're a hybrid, then they're not a simple, savable seed. They've done that deliberately so that they can make a bit more money, and often they're no better than heirloom seeds. But if you save the seeds of those, they revert back to the original parents that they've combined the genes from. So you have to know if the seed you're growing is a hybrid or not. And of course, if it's a GMO seed, which probably none of you will ever encounter, it's mostly about big business, really big corporate agriculture that deals in the GMO stuff. And some seeds are patented, but you won't come across that very much. So the main thing is if you know it's an open pollinated seed and not a hybrid seed, you can save the seed.
Okay, so it's the ones that are not listed as hybrid.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
A lot of those might not necessarily be, they could be recent introductions. There's still people doing breeding, but nothing like it used to be. It used to be in Canada, we had research stations right across the country trying,
Mhm.
and now we don't.
Oh, yeah, because it would be nice to get a soil test done too, but
Soil tests you can have done. There's people who do that.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that. Like it, well, I'm in the Comox Valley.
I'm not sure who it is up there. Uh, there's somebody in Sydney who does soil testing.
That's
You
a
can,
long way. Yeah, I guess you can mail it.
yeah, you can mail it. Ask at Buckerfields. They would know.
Okay. I don't even, do we even have one here?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Okay, thank you, Dan.
Okay.
Hello, Dan. Gregoire from the Slocan. Great presentation. Thank you.
Grégoire Lamoureux. Hi.
Yes. You ever experimented with the perennial grains, like from the Land Institute or anything like that?
No, I haven't gotten any of those yet. I tried a perennial rye, and I don't think it came from them, but and it did well for 2 years, but the third year it didn't. I still have some of the seed, but I was disenchanted with it because it didn't really do well after a while.
Anyone?
Have you tried any of them?
No, not yet. I wondered if anybody is doing it in Canada. Are you aware?
No, I don't know of anybody. But that's the Grain Institute in Salinas, Kansas is the one who's doing the most research about that, and possibly they would know.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, take care.
Good to see you. Thanks, bye.
There's a question from somebody asking if what is the best grain crop to plant on the coast for a small scale garden, maximum 1/4 acre?
The best grain crop?
Yes.
I'm very partial to amaranth, and I think that's one that has really yet to be discovered. It's really easy to grow. It's beautiful. It yields so much, and it's a great food. It's 17% protein. Nobody's allergic to it that I've ever heard, but it's not really, people are much more keen on quinoa, which is a great food too, but growing your own quinoa is hard because you have to rinse it really well. Commercial quinoas now are really good. They figured out a rubbing process, but you don't have to have anything done to amaranth. It cooks up in 12 minutes, equal volume of water from 1/4 of an acre. Geez, you could grow enough quinoa to feed Vancouver Island probably. So that would be one I would say. There's not too many difficulties with it, except it requires a lot of thinning because when you're sowing it, it's hard to, the seeds are so small that it's hard to sow it so that you don't have to thin.
I have a question on Mitsuba, Japanese parsley.
Fire away.
On Mitsuba, the Japanese parsley.
Hello, did you unmute?
I did unmute. Okay.
I can't hear you though.
Okay. I will try.
We can't hear you, Sylvie. Why don't you try sending it in the chat and I can ask it for you?
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
can I ask a question in the meantime?
Yes.
Okay, great. So first off, I want to say how glad I am that you mentioned about the wheat, because I have a lot of chemical sensitivities, and people think, oh, well, it's because you're eating wheat or you're eating certain grains. And I always tell them, oh, no, I think what it is, it's all the chemicals, because when I eat my own grown stuff like wheat, I'm fine. I only have tried a little bit of wheat. But I also wanted to ask, I get a splitting headache when I eat quinoa, and so I haven't grown any. And I was wondering, what would you say that is? Is it related to grasses? I have a lot of hay fever. So is it related to something or what? Because before I try the amaranth, I'd like to know that the amaranth is safe, kind of beforehand.
No, I don't know what to say. I've never heard anybody say anything similar about that. And I couldn't even guess. Yeah.
Oh, okay, because every time I eat quinoa, like organic quinoa, of course, I get a splitting headache from it, and then I have to fall asleep. That's kind of just a sensitivity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's just the way my body reacts to it. So, I did grow some of your quinoa at one time, but then I stopped because I figured there's no point if I can't eat it.
No, you must have a unique sensitivity to something in there.
Yeah.
But
okay.
I don't know what it would be.
But do you think that amaranth is very much different than quinoa? Like if I'm sensitive to quinoa, would I be okay with amaranth, do you think?
I would try a little bit. I think they are quite different.
Okay.
It could be the residues of saponin on the quinoa that you're allergic to, but I don't. That would be the only thing I could think of.
Okay. Thank you.
Good luck. Okay.
I have the question from Sylvie. So I'll just read it. It says, hi, okay. Have Mitsuba from you started? Will it readily self-seed? Want to put it in a shady area and let it naturalize.
It won't self-seed like parsley does. I've yet to see it self-seed at all. It seems to not do that. And putting it in a shady spot, I think, is a good idea. And it goes on and on. It's a great parsley kind of thing, and I like it a lot.
I have another question here. Do you know where I can find Spilanthes seeds? Do you have them?
We do have them. They're just behind my right shoulder. You can see we're in the, this is my seed room here. And you can see the little trays and all the different seeds. And when we get the orders on our store, I of course know exactly where everything is now without having to look, and I just grab everything and compile the order, put it in an express envelope, and that's a daily process. And then just behind the wall that you see where these seeds are is my storage room, which doesn't have any heat, but it doesn't have any windows, and it's a back room, and it houses all the seeds. And one of the beautiful things about seeds is they take so little storage. Most are so small, and you can store an immense amount of seeds in a small space. So communities should start thinking about having seed storage facilities, because it could be almost in anybody's cupboard. And that's really important security for the future.
Can I ask a question?
Ask away.
how best to store seeds? Like if you want to keep them over the winter to wait, so should you keep them somewhere cold, or what's the best way?
Cold is good, but as long as it isn't hot. The most important thing by far is dry. It's really important to keep seeds dry, and it's fairly easily done. Yeah, away from heat, away from light, but most of all, away from moisture. And another amazing thing about seeds, which I haven't said yet, is that they last forever practically. You can, from just a few lettuce plants, lettuce seeds last 5 years. You could have enough lettuce seeds for all your family for those 5 years, and you wouldn't have to grow that lettuce variety again. And that's an amazing thing. And almost all seeds last for, if they're kept dry, 5 to 10 years. I've sown some, I had some old seeds this year that I thought wouldn't germinate at all. They were like 8 to 12 years old, and all of them germinated. There's only a couple of things that have a short viability, and that's onions and leeks. Usually only last a year or two. And lovage is not a good one, and parsnips don't last very long. But all the other ordinary vegetables last for a really long time.
And can you let parsnips go to seed?
You for sure can. And but best to use those seeds within a year. Otherwise, they just they lose their germination ability in just a year.
Oh wow! Okay.
Someone's asking, do you have success growing buckwheat as a food crop versus just as a cover crop? Does it need special equipment to be harvested? Also, do you sell seed in larger quantities versus just the small packets?
No, I haven't had success growing it as a food, and it's a seed that's hard to process. You could sprout it and use the sprouts or the tops without the hard seed part, but when they make buckwheat flour and buckwheat stuff like that, it's machine processed, and I only use it as a cover crop. And I do sell the seed, but I just sell it in garden amounts, a package of about 400 seeds. But almost all garden supply shops sell buckwheat in bulk. And it is one of the best cover crops. It smothers weeds beautifully. It's killed by frost, though.
Somebody else asks, they say, I live in Vancouver in an apartment with a rooftop deck, so I grow in containers. Any suggestions for best food crops to grow?
Well, ones that don't have big roots for sure. And I would say any greens, because there's nothing like a few greens to even add to a salad that you already have, just for a little energy and a little prana that's coming from something that you've grown and watched yourself. And lettuces are pretty beautiful. There's so many different kinds, and kale's a good one too, and parsley and common herbs like oregano and basil. Those are all good.
Someone's asking, is there a reliable online or published schedule for both planting and duration for optimal saving?
For optimal saving, I don't know of any, but West Coast Seeds has a really great catalog in terms of when to plant things and when to harvest things. And they have beautiful tables of all the crops. They have a fantastic catalog. I don't like the fact that they buy their seeds in bulk from the United States and everybody thinks that they're a local seed company, but they do have a really great catalog and has some of the best information on all the plants. The person who's doing that, Mark McDonald, I think is his name, every year he just has so much great information, and that catalog is available for free.
Well, it looks like we've reached the time. Is there a way people can get in touch with you if they have more questions, or?
They sure can. I answer emails and phone calls every day. That's part of my morning routine. And I'm at Dan at saltspringsseeds.com. And they can call also. It's 250-537-5269. And I'm always happy to answer questions. And yeah, and want to encourage anybody and everybody to grow as much as they can and to try to form alliances with other people who are. It's time for city people who can't grow a lot of their own foods to connect with people who are in the Fraser Valley or wherever, so that we can really start getting a local agriculture here, because it's not only a question of its desirability now. It's very serious. What's coming down the road, we're going to have to grow our own food for sure. And the sooner we figure out all the possible ways of doing it, the better.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. And happy summer, happy gardening, and happy seed saving.